We have with us in the studio right now Mr. Jide Ojo, who is a public affairs analyst, and we also have with us Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi, who is also a public affairs analyst, in addition to being a senior lecturer at the Bayes University here in Abuja. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily, both of you gentlemen.
Thanks for having me on. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Well, can I quickly ask you, what's your take? Let's start with this prescription of IMN. Let me ask you first, Mr. Jide Ojo, what's your reaction to it?
Well, I think we need to tread very carefully so that we don't drive these people underground. As of last week, a lot of people were actually saying government should negotiate. And I think that is a better and less costly option for us. We do know Zaki is going to appear before the courts today. Why tying the hands of the judiciary? I heard you here ask SSA Media and Publicity about how will Zaki be addressed when he's brought before the court. Is he as a terrorist, or as a civil member of the society? Because now you are more or less telling the court when he gets there today that this man before you is a terrorist. So invariably, the mindset would be, how do you grant him another bail, being a terrorist? So if they've allowed the court sitting to hold, and if he's deemed to, again, be granted bail, then government should honor that bail condition. But we know that several of those previous bills are being rebuffed, which is what led to the daily protests by the IMN group. And my own worry is this. If you drive these people underground and they start guerrilla warfare, the tenuous security situation in the country will be worsened. Then you will even have a face to dialogue with. Because at the end of the day, you keep their leader in custody, and the members that could have negotiated with you for a peaceful resolution of the conflict, they are no longer there. Because now, something happened last week. I was on another TV platform, and one of the spokesperson of IMN was on telephone interview, and he said, Usman Abubakar, what's the name of the DCP, Deputy Commissioner of Police? Usman Umar, that was shot and killed last week. Is a member of their sect. That the man is a member of their sect. What does that tell you? Clamp down. And the man was shot in the head from the back, which then shows that there is a possibility that those who knew him to be a member of the sect or a sympathizer of the sect actually did that so that it will be in the public domain that, oh, the man died in the course of accidental discharge, or, was even murdered by the sect itself. So when the guys said that many people do not know that that man is a member of their sect, what comes to mind is, have we started to see the clamp down?
No, but I think that needs to be clarified. Is he a Shiite, or is he a member of IMN? Because the federal government maintains that there are other Shiites in Nigeria who are not members of the IMN, and that their prescription is not of Shiites in general, it is of this particular group.
Well, again, I don't have all of the facts, whether it's the IMN group, but what is instructive to me is that if you now proscribe, what it means is that anyone who has sympathy for IMN or who is a deemed known member of the IMN will start getting persecution, even where there is no protest. This may not be done publicly, but what it means, because whether we like it or not, we need to contextualize the face-off in the Cold War between the Sunnis and the Shiites, which also have transnational border in terms of Iran and Saudi Arabia. So there is a diplomatic angle to this, there is a domestic angle to this. And classifying them as a terrorist group, as we do know, in the last years of their operations in Nigeria, they've not been known to carry arms. What they know and what they were charged with was disruption of public peace in terms of, blocking highways and all of those sorts. Now, if you drive them to taking up arms against the country, then you have too many battles on your hand. Because we already have the Boko Haram insurgents 10 years down the line. We've not been able to successfully curtail that. If you have the IMN group also going underground and taking up arms and start targeting government institutions and all of that. Look at the casualty, the unintended casualty that happened last week. My condolences to Charles on the loss of Precious Owolabi. So we can't continue to have this kind of challenge on our hands, knowing full well that this country needs peace for its development. We are talking of 10-point agenda, we are talking of ERGP, we are talking of even good governance. You can only have that where there is an atmosphere of peace.
Let me quickly take the stance of Dr. Denny. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, somewhat. I can't agree with him more on some of the points he has actually raised. What I need us to understand is that, groups that are ideological, it could be religious, it could be political, it could also be social, can always be very deadly, because it takes time for ideologies to grow. It takes time for people to be convinced to believe in a pattern of worldview. And when that comes, you cannot deal with it just with black letter legalism. You need to seek their understanding. You need to dialogue with them. You need to resort rather to moral suasion. Trying to bring them out of their long years of understanding in a particular direction into another. But that doesn't seem to be what government is doing. But I think Governor El-Rufai did very well at this level, trying to make these people understand. But the moment the federal government moved in, I think the problem escalated. Through the arrest of this man, and through what seems to be a disregard for the legal processes, as reflected in the granting of bail to him. Then Abuja, of course, we've seen them in Abuja in the last 4 years protesting. Their protests have largely been peaceful, no matter what we think, until very recently. And the fact that they're becoming something else, it could be some kind of exasperation with the fact that they've not been listened to. I've driven through them a couple of times in the past, and they were harmless, really. So what is it that is making them to become really agitated to the extent that they have been allegedly said to be violent, to provoke government, to banning them? We need to understand that, proscription has never worked in any system, especially when you are dealing with groups that are ideological in orientation. It has actually never really worked. What it means is that you're just adopting a knee-jerk tactics to take them overground and drive them underground. And in that case, they become more vociferous, they become more deadly. And of course, we know that, like you said, the security agencies are already overstretched. We do not need to stretch them any further.
But the authorities might think that they need to put their foot on the ground right now. When you have groups who have come right into the heart of the fight. Now, let me quickly say this. The police says that they had earmarked a place for protest, that they earmarked the Unity Fountain. They're not saying that people shouldn't protest, but they're saying that they should restrict all protests to the Unity Fountain. Would you say that they did right by not seizing that particular option and still insisting on doing their processions to, say, to the Federal Secretariat or the 3M zone, as the case might be?
Well, the police have a right to adopt any kind of strategy that will bring about peace and sustain peace at the same time, But sometimes when you see groups protesting, really, they are forced to take some kind of reaction because of the initial reaction of an authority. If you see them as friends, they are likely to approach you as friends as well. Don't forget that we're talking about a crowd of people, which can be very difficult to control because they thrive in anonymity, And for instance, so many crimes have been committed by this group, and it's been very difficult to apprehend any particular person, as a culprit, That's the character of crowd, And they can easily take advantage of the authorities, the police inclusive. And of course, if you befriend them, if you court them, if you manage them well, you can deal with their psychology and make them feel concerned and make them feel that you are concerned about their plight. You know, of course, we know that government has a responsibility to make sure we are all able to live in peace and do our daily activities in peace. We understand that government is probably reacting in that direction. But we're saying here that government is a father figure, you know, and they need to show a lot more restraint. And I'm saying that proscription or some kind of knee-jerk, you know, brazen, horrid tactics is not going to help us in this circumstance.
Let's quickly take a look at, or do you want to quickly react to that question? Do you think that they should have also taken the option of restricting their protests to the Unity Fountain?
Well, possibly. In fact, I'm just hearing that for the first time, that the police, has just like Speaker's Corners Trust, you know, he marked a place for protest. Many a time, even you recall that BBOG, Bring Back Our Girls, when they were even protesting, they were dispersed by police at some point. So if that is already done in the recent past, maybe there is need for sufficient publicity around that so that people know if you want to protest, you can go to Unity Fountain. But what if there are several protest groups, you know, and that could also cause a breach? Why not, I mean, for me, why not obey the court injunction? The man has severally been granted bail. And you are saying, I mean, I listened to Malami, former AGF, last week, saying, oh, public interest overrides private interest. So government has a role to keep you against your wish because of public interest. But like Doc said, do you know that Boko Haram was proscribed by Jonathan in 2013? Has that stopped Boko Haram from attacking? You see, when you are dealing with ideological group, these are people who don't care to die. Their lives mean little or nothing to them. Every time they protest, 40, 50 are picked up. Yet it has not deterred them to come out the following day. Even after the very violent one that took place where they allegedly burnt the emergency vehicles the following day they still came out. They were still chased away at Banex Plaza area. So it tells you that you can kill us as many as you like, but we will not give up on our protest. So I think dialogue is the best option. If you confine that to BBOG and some other groups come and dislodge them, what happens? There will be a breach of public peace. So it's better to actually allow the legal system to run its full course. What if other groups, for instance, the Sunni sympathizers, decide to go and dislodge them? Because there's this mutual animosity between the two factions, the Sunnis and the Shiites. So you still have breakdown of public peace.
But we haven't had that, you know.
Yeah, because they've not been confined.
I'm just wondering, this Sunni Shia animosity, which you have heard about, which is real outside of Nigeria, we haven't quite seen it publicized here in Nigeria. I don't know if you have seen any incidents where
we may get there, we may be getting there. Because the moment you start clamping down, and I just told you the story about the Umar guy that was murdered, whether by police or by the supposed IMN. But the claim by the Shia is this guy was deliberately killed. In fact, what the guy said on telephone was he was quickly buried like an Ebola patient within 2 hours of his being murdered. No autopsy to determine which kind of weapon, is it the one by the police or by any other group that killed him. But that is just on one side. The issue for me is proscribing them is like embarking on a fruitless effort. They have been proscribed in Kaduna prior to now. Has it worked? Has it stopped their existence?
Do you think that government is afraid of appearing weak? Because they would say, how many groups would we negotiate with? Don't you think that there are some groups that they need to put their foot down with?
But this is not, it's not an ideological group you do that to. You can do that to any other group that is not ideological in nature. For me, like I said, these people are not afraid of dying. They are not afraid of being arrested. They are not afraid of torture. They are so committed to their faith and belief. And they have a constitutional right to do so, in as much as they are not forcing any other person to join or compelling people, because we need to respect the secularity of Nigeria. Beyond the disruptions of traffic in Zaria and other places, majorly in Kaduna, we've not seen any major disruption by this Shia group in Abuja previous to when their leaders was incarcerated, or any other part of Nigeria, including any part of the north. They have, and my worry
But
again,
the disruption alone, isn't it something to give us fear and worry? Because if you ask those who live in Zaria, they will tell you that they did not have a very good time living with the IMN as a group. They will tell you whenever it is that they go on their protests and things, or their processions, it's usually not a day to go out or things of so. Do you think that it is actually, should we feel safe as a people? I mean, in the secular state, that such a group exists.
Well, we should be worried, no doubt. But is proscription, government have destroyed their schools. Their children are being molested, from what I learned from the telephone interview I was referring to. Many of their private schools which they built have been demolished. Their worship centers have been demolished in Kaduna. And some of their...
Now, that happened after the clash with the military.
Possibly, yes, in 2015.
You know, you also have to ask how that clash with the military could have happened. You know, where you have a situation whereby the Chief of Army Staff was passing and he was denied passage for whatever reason. I'm just wondering, in the first instance, should we be afraid of such a group? It's just a question.
We should be. Can I comment?
Yes, you may.
I think it will also speak to the larger issue of how we practice religion in this country. You know, if we are complaining about people who are processing, you know, who are not bearing arms, what about those who also inconvenience others one way or the other by blocking the roads on Sundays and on Fridays because of worship? What about those, you know, who use loudspeakers in places of worship and prevent people from sleeping very well, you know, and all of that? There are different kinds of distractions that we can talk about at the level of religion. But if we start pigeonholing it to one sect, you know, like I said, it can be very dangerous because you may get them agitated in the process, you know. And we're talking about people who are already indoctrinated. Indoctrination is one of the most difficult things to deal with because we're talking about a thing of the heart, a thing of the mind that took years to construct, you know, and you cannot easily deal with it by legal action alone, you know, or by just force, you know. And that's what the point has been making, that they're not afraid of death, for instance. They believe in the apocalypse, you know. They are very eschatological about their thinking. They believe, some of them believe that there's life after life, and the life after life isn't very blissful, so death does not matter to them. You know, there's a clash of civilization here. You and I want to live as long as possible, but some of these people don't care about the life that you want to live so very well. You know, so there's a problem of civilization. You may call it a deprivation of the mind. You may call it a problem of illiteracy, but it's still a problem for us as a community of people living in a plural environment. And that's why we're saying that the government that is supposed to be a father figure, you know, will have to come to an understanding of these dynamics and be a little more restrained. Granted that they also have a primary responsibility to ensure that there's peace in the land.
Okay. Let me quickly take you up now on the screening, ministerial screening. What do you make of it? I think it's going to go on today, if not concluded today. Yeah. But we have seen 2 days so far. Yeah. What do you make of, first, the quality of people appointed, and what do you make of those who, the screening itself, how has it gone so far? Do you think it's gone smoothly? Do you think are you happy with the quality of questions and the responses that you've had?
For me, Mark, I think that if you look at the collection of nominees, you will see they are ordinarily accomplished people. There are people in whom you will say the Shakespearean elements are fully mixed, you know. And, of course, watching the screening, too, has been very interesting so far. You know, many of them dressed to the nines and exhibiting the gift of the gab. You know, but it also go beyond, it all go beyond that, you know. I would have wanted a cabinet, like I said, many of them are accomplished. Many of them will hope they will do very well. But I would have wanted a cabinet that is also filled up with, that is probably halfly populated with technocrats, you know, people from corporations, people from quality diaspora organization and people from research organizations and the university. And these are people that ordinarily come into the system with some level of originality and bringing about some kind of reform in the system. You know, yes, politicians have their way, they have their priorities, but we shouldn't undermine. You know, they will be much more concerned about patronage, the distribution of patronage, about assuaging feelings, about ministering to the feelings of people, as against governance and performance. You know, some of them might be different. You know, some of them might be different. It might not be general anyway, but we would have wished that a lot more of them, you know, would have been much more people who are experts, who can easily identify as experts. And with respect to the screening, it was okay. We've seen some of them very brilliant. Sonny Dare was exemplary. Kenyamu was outstanding in my reckoning, and maybe one or two other ones. You know, but generally, you will say that it's not so much of a wow combination like people will sometimes want to say. But again,
sorry, I'm afraid I have to cut you.
Okay.
Let Mr. Ojo say something on the ministerial screening. What are your thoughts?
But sincerely speaking, it's a little bit disappointing. Even from the presidency, we don't need 55 days to compile that kind of 43 people. And like I've said on several other platforms, look, the president was declared winner of presidential election on about February 25th. We had the election on 23rd. It took about 2 days to do the tabulation of results. So by 25th or thereabout, he already knew he's won a re-election. As at that time, he ought to have put together a small committee to start daunting for him. You don't wait till inauguration. And he doesn't have anything distracting the governors. You just set up a 5-7-man people. Help me look for quality people to help me out.
So let's bring it down to now that the ministerial list has been, you know, brought up. What do you think of it?
Now, my disappointment is this bar and go stuff. And the fact that the president did not also attach portfolio to the names submitted. So they are flying blind, even for the few that are being asked questions that are not being allowed to bar and go, which has become a very puerile tradition in our National Assembly. I don't know why, because somebody is a former senator or House of Reps member or State House of Assembly member.
They have had them explain that. They say that it's because they already know the person.
It's not a good tradition. They are not being asked to come and pick senatorial appointments. This is an administration. This is a new job cut out for them. They should be grilled on that new exercise that they are going to be handling. And if you have the ministerial portfolio attached to those names, it will help the parliament to ask targeted questions as to, oh, you are going to Minister of Justice, XYZ. You are going to Minister of Health. We do not know if Ngige is going to be Minister of Health or is going to go back to Labor and Productivity. Is that going to even be the merger of the existing, merged structures like Works, Housing and Power, or Minister of Information and Culture, or Minister of Transportation and Aviation? Are they going to demerge, or they are going to remain as it were in 2015? So the best thing will have been to attach the portfolio to enable the Senate to do a more targeted screening of the candidates.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it. We'll have to thank both of you for coming on Sunrise Daily. Mr. Jide Ojo is the public affairs analyst, and Dr. Abiodun Adeni is also a public affairs analyst, in addition to being a senior lecturer at Bayes University here in Abuja.